Hey YouTubers, in this video we're gonna talk about how to choose a motherboard. Well, we all know there are so many components that combine to make a motherboard. I believe there are three basic components to consider when choosing the best motherboard. These components are CPU and motherboard compatibility, case and motherboard compatibility, and available ports and slots. So in this video, we are going to discuss these three levels of skills in detail. So let's get started. The first thing you should consider is that your CPU and motherboard should be compatible. The first and the most important thing is to choose the motherboards that are compatible with your processor. Keep in mind that all the motherboards are not compatible with all your processor. To learn whether your chosen motherboard is compatible with your processor or not, you need to understand two things. First is CPU socket and the other is motherboard chipset. These two things are important to understand in order to determine whether or not a processor and motherboard are compatible. So let us briefly discuss each of these factors for better understanding. We are going to cover each of these two compatibility factors. At first, we have CPU socket. First of all, narrow down your options for the motherboard you are considering according to your preferences. Now, once you have narrowed down your options, the next thing you should keep in your mind is, if we talk about Intel and AMD CPUs, then not all the AMD CPUs are compatible with AMD-based motherboards, and same is the case with Intel. Well, if you have decided to buy a new generation processor and are thinking of pairing it with an old generation motherboard, do not forget to check for the updates. Sometimes motherboards need the BIOS update to work with the new generation processors. The second important factor is the chipset. In order to make your motherboard compatible with your processor, you need to consider the last thing, that is the chipset. So basically, a motherboard comes with a set of chipsets. For each motherboard socket, there are multiple chipsets available. Well, it is very important to choose the right one because for each processor, there comes the best suited chipset. The number 2 level of skill is that your motherboard must fit inside the case you are choosing. Newbies usually don't realize that not every motherboard fits inside every case. So for case compatibility, there are three common choices. One is standard ADX, another is micro ADX, and third we have mini ADX. Standard ADX is a full-size motherboard and it is the most common one. On the other hand, micro ADX is a little bit smaller, but it won't have as many expansion slots for adding cards. Finally, the mini IDX is the smallest form factor and an amazing choice for the super compact build. But let me tell you that it won't have any PCI Express expansion slots, apart from the main one for the graphic cards. These three motherboard form factors are the most common. To determine whether or not your motherboard will fit in your chosen case, you have to check the case and look for the specifications. On the case specification sheet, it is already mentioned which case will go better with your motherboard. The number 3 level of skill is to make sure that your motherboard have enough ports or slots for your needs. The last thing that I want you to consider before choosing a motherboard is the types and the number of ports. No doubt a motherboard is a large hub where all of your computer components plug in to deliver you an on-screen experience. The more ports your motherboard has meant the more components you can plug. While plugging more components into your motherboard doesn't necessarily result in a linear improvement in performance. More ports do give you some more options. The main motherboard ports that you need to know are DIMM slots, SATA ports, PCIe lanes, USB headers and ports, display interface ports. There are the main ports that are important to know for every consumer. So let us explain each of the ports for better understanding. At first we have DIMM slots. For DIMM slots, keep in mind that your computer's memory is installed in them. Mid-range to better motherboards come with 4 DIMM slots, however, smaller motherboards come with 2 DIMM slots. Well, even the motherboard with 2 DIMM slots can hold up to 32 GBs. For any kind of use case scenario, 32 GB is quite enough. The next important port is SATA ports. SATA ports allow you to connect your storage devices to the computer. The hard disk drive, SSD, SATA, optical devices all are connected to SATA ports. If you have more SATA ports in your motherboard, it means that you can connect more storage to your computer. Next comes the PCIe lanes. PCIe lanes are made to accommodate a variety of components. PCIe lanes are very important for gamers and graphic designers because there is where you can plug your graphic card. Usually, motherboards come with a limited PCIe lanes, however, expensive motherboards come with multiple PCIe lanes. The next one is USB headers and USB ports. A USB header makes you able to add your USB ports to the computer. Motherboards come with a USB header on the board and the USB ports on the I/O panel on the top right of the motherboard. For instance, when you buy a case for your system, it's come with a USB port on the front panel. If you want to utilize them, you need to plug the USB ports into a USB header. The last and kind of most important is display interface ports. When we say display interface ports, it actually means we are talking about DVI, HDMI, and display ports. Display interface ports are important if you are not going to use the dedicated graphic card. But if you use a graphic card, you can forgo nothing with display ports your motherboard comes with. If you just rely on your processor for graphic processing, then you need to make sure that your motherboard should have appropriate ports to connect with your monitor. Modern motherboards come with a DVI and HDMI port, so motherboards will only become an issue when you want to set up more than one monitors. Well, this was all for today. Hope you liked the video. Let us know about your opinion in the comment section below. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell icon for more updates and notifications. Stay safe and we will be back soon with another video.